welcome to the What If It's Not Depression podcast. We're going to be talking about perimenopause, menopause, weight loss resistance, and depression, and how they're all connected. I'm interviewing Jennifer Roelands. She's a medical doctor who is double boarded in integrative medicine and OB-GYN. She completed her residency at Duke University and her integrative training through Andrew Weil Integrative Medicine Center in California. I think that's in California. And she is the founder and CEO of Precision Health, MD, which provides comprehensive healthcare by combining the best evidence-based therapies from conventional, naturopathic, and holistic medicine. Her areas of expertise include women's health, including PCOS and menopause, gut health, and longevity medicine, focusing on metabolic health. She employs various therapeutic modalities such as nutrition, lifestyle modification, nutrient IV therapy, botanical medicine, and hormone replacement therapy. Not only is she practicing clinical medicine, but she is also serving as a medical advisor consultant to companies such as GSK, Pure Ants, and Pario Health. And she's a speaker and podcast host of Ignite Your Power. When she is not practicing medicine, she's an avid foodie, outdoor enthusiast, and go-to math guru for her 4 energetic kids. Welcome, Dr. Roelands, Dr. Jen.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Oh, it's great having you. We have so much to talk about, and we started talking about it before I hit record. So I'm like, we have to stop and record all of this because it was so juicy. I just want to also add that you are licensed in, you said 8 states. Is that correct?
11 states.
Oh, 11 states. Okay. Can you just list them off? Just so people know that if they want to work with you and they are a resident of that state, that they can reach out to you.
Sure. So California, Nevada, Washington, Missouri, Montana, Louisiana, Kansas, Minnesota, Texas, Arkansas, and now working on Virginia.
Awesome. Awesome. That is so great that you're able to see people from different parts of the country, because we just don't have enough people in this space doing that. And
yes,
people are frustrated. People are very frustrated in finding really good integrative, functional, or holistic doctors. So let's dive in and start with your story. What got you into this? I think you mentioned postpartum depression, but tell us more about if there's anything else that you struggled with that got you into this space.
Yeah, I actually had infertility when I was trying to conceive my second son. And I struggled with trying to get pregnant and saw an REI doctor. And at the time, the doctor said, well, you know, everything looks good. You're healthy. Just take some time and it'll work itself out. But I actually knew in my heart, I actually thought I had PCOS. I had very irregular periods. I was having fatigue and acne and but I didn't fit the picture of a PCOS patient. I was skinny and it just didn't fit the picture. So after about a year of trying to conceive, I actually did my own blood work and found out my testosterone was 80.
Wow.
And my thyroid antibodies were 1,000, even though my
Wow.
TSH was normal. So I had 2 really big reasons I couldn't conceive. I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and I also had PCOS, or skinny PCOS, as people will refer to sort of the lean PCOS type. And that was very much causing my infertility. And so once I sort of got those under control with medications, I was actually able to conceive my second son. But afterwards, I kind of did everything that, my doctor told me and what I tell other patients: get on thyroid medication, get on a birth control pill. But I was finding myself exhausted, and I couldn't sleep. I was feeling very anxious. So I was put on, an SSRI for anxiety. Then I was put on Ambien to help me sleep because I couldn't sleep from the SSRI. And I was like on these sort of medication roller coaster. And I kind of heard in my head what patients have been telling me for years: there has to be another answer. Like, there has to be another reason, right? Patients would say to me, Doc Roelands, like, what's the deal? I don't understand why I still feel so bad, even though you're telling me to take these medications. So it really made me dive into, there has to be more to the story besides treating thyroid with Synthroid and PCOS with a birth control. There has to be something else because I know I'm a healthy person, and why can't I feel better on this regimen? And
Right.
that really actually got me into nutrition and realizing that what I ate was just as important as my Synthroid and just as important as my birth control pill. And so I kind of started diving into that nutrition world. And from there, your world kind of explodes into the options as far as functional medicine, integrative medicine, and precision medicine, to really understand that there's so many more tools we can use as a doctor for patients to help them heal from
Right.
whatever condition that we're talking about. And certainly to reverse disease and prevent disease, which is kind of what I love to talk about, is how do we keep from becoming having a thyroid problem, or how do we keep from having diabetes? Like, let's talk about how we can actually be on top of our health ahead of time to prevent that.
Right. Right. Great. Yeah. That's a typical journey
Yeah.
of when conventional providers are shifting into the more holistic space because they're frustrated. And so, yeah. And so when did you have postpartum depression after having that particular child?
I
Okay.
did. I breastfed my first child, and I could not breastfeed the second. It was not something, and now knowing what I know now, hormonally, I was still a mess, right? I had to know, had a baby, but I really hadn't understood the nutrition aspect and the inflammation aspect or anything of how to really get my body heal. And so I had just terrible depression. In fact, I can remember like literally handing my kid to my husband. It was like, he hates me. I know he hates me. Like, what do we do if we have to find another mother for this kid? Like,
Oh,
I was like, I think he hates me. Like, I think he hates me because I can't provide him any nutrition. And I feel like I can't be what I could do for my first one. And it was just I actually had to go back to work because I was so depressed. I couldn't sit at home. And my postpartum time was 2 weeks because I couldn't do
oh,
it. I felt so much like a failure that I had, done so great for the first one. Here's the second kid.
right.
I'm like, here's a ticket to therapy, kid. I already got you going later
Oh,
on. And I realized so much of what I was dealing with was hormones, but it was also the fact that you have all these sometimes expectations of what this should look like, and it was not the picture what I had anticipated. And so it was just for me so hard to kind of do
right.
that. And I was on medication at the time. And I took, the typical SSRIs, but I am very passionate about helping with people with postpartum depression because you feel so alone when
Right.
that happens. You feel like I must be the only shitty mother, right? Everybody else is like Facebook and Instagram gorgeous, and I'm like the one that's like can't even eat toast in the morning. Like, I'm struggling. So I really am so much passionate about trying to help women understand that some of this is a little bit out of your control with your hormones. And when it's down, it's hard to fight against an uphill battle.
Right.
So yeah, that was definitely something that I learned so much about what other things I can do besides medications at that point.
Right. Right. That's awesome. And how did your third and fourth pregnancy go? Because I know you have 4 kids.
Well, it was twins, so it was
Oh,
a third.
twins. Okay.
Much better because at that point I had pretty much healed my Hashimoto's. I was in a good place. My PCOS was under control. I just did better from a mental health perspective. I knew that I was at risk for postpartum depression because it happened once, so therefore I'm at risk again of this happening. And I had set up kind of a support system, knowing that, telling my husband, like, we need to have this plan in place to where I'm getting some sleep. I can, manage the other kids. Like, I need to have a sort of a structured system ahead of time and give
Right.
myself the grace that it's not going to look pretty, but in the end, I can do this. So that was a very different, definitely different postpartum journey.
Awesome. Awesome. That sounds wonderful. And you all have already given people who are likely to be in the same place or in the same place right now ideas about how you can do this differently. It doesn't have to be the same journey,
Mm-hmm.
and that everybody has their own. And you're right that just because it's on social media doesn't mean it's even real, right?
Yeah,
Can tell you how many people say they are having wonderful lives when really in the background they're not. So
that's true.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. People try to compare themselves, but stop comparing people. Stop.
Just be you.
Just be you. Okay, exactly. I always say that to some of my patients. You be you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And postpartum journeys look very different for different people. I mean, there are different family dynamics, right? And so I try to work with patients to say, let's kind of think about the system ahead of time and how can you get support from your mom or neighbor or, get meals delivered or, how do we make this very seamless as much as we can? And then, bumps in the road will happen, but we've already sort of thought about the things that make sense afterwards.
Right, right.
And it's not, and most important, it's not a reflection of your inability, because
Absolutely.
that's kind of the biggest thing. People feel like, well, if I get help from my neighbor, it means that I'm not capable. It has nothing to do with being capable. These are smart decisions, right? Smart decisions to help you be
Absolutely.
more for your kid.
Yeah, I have a patient who has many struggles and adopted a baby, and she decided to have a night nurse.
Yeah.
Have a night nurse. I'm going to have it so I can get my sleep, because it's so critical for her own well-being. So
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with that. So,
Nope.
yeah. So, I know we went down this path on postpartum depression, which I think is so, so important, because it can get dangerous for some people. It can lead to psychosis, and you really want to make sure that you're safe and that the baby's safe, and make sure those kinds of things are addressed. So it's a very, very important topic. But we wanted to let's segue back and talk about, because I have many patients who are entering perimenopause, leading to menopause. And this is your wheelhouse. Like, this is what you do day in and day out. And, would love for you to connect the dots of how does one know, even as early as 35, 37 years old, of whether or not that is one of the root causes for symptoms. And many times, as we discuss, depression is one of those things: depression, anxiety, insomnia, and people are prescribed SSRIs or even antipsychotic medications to control their downstream symptoms. And there's no discussion at all about perimenopause or menopause. So let's start there.
Yeah, so perimenopause can occur up to 10 years before menopause. And the definition of menopause is 1 year without periods. Or if you don't get periods because you have an IUD or you have an ablation, then you need to have had an FSH blood test done at least a month apart. And that blood test needs to be over 30, essentially, for you to say that I'm in menopause. And most people have symptoms as well. 80% of women have symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. So usually those symptoms evolve, and then you're kind of getting there. So if you do the math, I mean, that's 10 years shy of the average age of 51. People can be experiencing 41, but they can also have it start in their late 30s. Because what if you're the person that's going through full menopause and you're done at 45? Then you would have backed up 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the perimenopause has lots of stages associated with it. The first stage is that you don't consistently ovulate. And when you don't consistently ovulate, you don't make progesterone. You just don't, the tank starts to kind of get less and less and less progesterone. And progesterone is our hormone that is our relaxing hormone. So it works at our brain at the GABA receptor to say, let's get to sleep, let's stay asleep. Let's calm our brain down. Let's kind of get the monkey that's telling us to like run everywhere and do 50 things needs to chill out and calm down. So often when you, and progesterone works a lot of different places too. It works at the GABA receptors in the heart. So people will have palpitations who are going through perimenopause. They actually feel like they had too much coffee. These kind of heart palpitations. It's in our joints to actually help with joint movement. And so when you lose progesterone in the perimenopause time, patients will often say, I have a hard time getting to sleep because my brain won't shut down. I have anxiety. I feel edgy. I feel sometimes just like in a funk mood where I just, not depressed, but I just kind of, I don't really have any motivation to do anything. I can't get to sleep and stay asleep all night. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm ready to go. They will often say I have heart palpitations, I have joint pain, I may have less libido, and that's almost always this sort of progesterone effect that starts happening and years before you hit menopause. And so it starts to kind of become more and more and more of an issue as you're not ovulating, not ovulating, not ovulating from that perspective. And then as we start having estrogen decline, estrogen doesn't decline like a nice little line like progesterone. It actually is this roller coaster
Right.
that does this. So patients who are having some declining estrogen from their ovaries may notice like some weeks they feel good, some weeks they don't feel good. They have hot flashes, night sweats, brain fog, memory recall. Like, what's my neighbor's name again?
Mhm.
Why? How do I log into this thing at work again? Joint pain,
Mm.
achiness in your joints, itchiness of your skin. Your skin starts to kind of notice the wrinkles and a little bit of sagging that happens, a little bit of sagging that happens, mid-abdomen weight gain.
Mm.
That's all very estrogen-like effects, and breast tenderness. So people can sort of notice that it'll be like on and off happening,
Right.
and they're like, oh, I feel good. And then wait, what's up with this? Joints are killing me this week. Like they kind of notice these sort of transitions. And then testosterone is very much the libido hormone, focus, vitality, muscle mass. And so people will often notice they have lack of those things when their testosterone starts to decline. And again, that's more of a gradual decline that happens during those times. So when we see women who are saying, I just can't sleep, sometimes I just hate my coworkers. Like I'm edgy. I'm waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like those are all those early signs of perimenopause that can very much be not only diagnosed by someone's symptoms and they're over the age of 35, but if we went through sort of a more medical terminology, when you have a change in your period by 7 days or more, either shortened or lengthened, and this is repetitive over 3 times over 6 months, then you've met that perimenopause definition.
Mhm.
So I usually talk to patients who may come in with those symptoms and we kind of say, hey, what else are you experiencing? What else is going on, to see more of a whole body picture of what's going on with the hormones specifically.
Right.
Because you can do blood tests for hormones, but again, they can be very erratic in perimenopause. So it doesn't always help you with diagnosis. Really, the person's story is the most important part of that.
Right, right. And stress is a big part of the picture that can affect hormones as well.
Yeah, cortisol can derail everything.
Mhm.
So high cortisol can definitely if you sort of think about the steroid pathway back in the day, with everything starting at cholesterol, then we go to pregnenolone, and then we have these divisions between, the androgens and estrogen and progesterone. Cortisol can definitely throw off your sex hormones. So if you're someone that has high stress, or maybe you're starving your body and you're not eating very much and causing stress, that can disrupt your hormones for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's really important to look at the whole hormone picture in the
Mhm.
context of everything else, including diet,
Yes.
sleep, your sleep cycle, movement, etc. Yeah. So at what point do you start talking about hormone therapy for these patients? Let's say that they are doing all the quote right things, right? And when do you where in this cycle of the perimenopause cycle would you start considering using either supplements to improve or even bioidentical hormones? Like what is it
Anytime.
anytime? Where
Yeah, if they come in, and if a patient comes in and they're 41 years old and they say, I can't sleep, I'm edgy, I am depressed, I have palpitations, I'm not going to say, well, you're not close enough to menopause. You're clearly losing these hormones. So if you want to restore them, we can talk about hormone replacement therapy. But also, being that I'm integrative medicine trained, I also talk about other options too. It's not just hormonal. I sort of let the patient make the discussion about what's right for them. Is it hormonal replacement therapy? Is it non-hormonal? It could be FDA approved medications or herbs, or is it nutrition and lifestyle that we want to focus on? And sometimes we do a little of everything.
Mhm, mhm. That's great. Yeah, so when a person has perimenopausal symptoms, a lot of times I see the biggest complaint, besides the cognitive and the emotional, is suddenly my metabolism's changed. Like why am I putting on all of a sudden 5 pounds, 10 pounds, and I can't seem to get it off? And it's not because I've changed my diet. It's not because, I'm not exercising. I'm doing all of those things and my thyroid is fine, right? So what do you have to say about that? If you can
Yeah,
connect
so
the dots for people. Yeah.
yeah, estrogen, I describe to patients, estrogen is like the bossy aunt in your family. Like she's involved in everything. She knows everything about everybody. She's involved in everybody's business. So when you don't have estrogen and you're, going through perimenopause or even in menopause, you now don't have the boss that helps with insulin. And so insulin resistance is very common in perimenopause and menopause. So you're doing all the things that used to work great for you. You're eating a certain way, you're doing a certain exercise, but for some reason it's not working. I always check people for fasting insulin and hemoglobin A1C because I find a lot of insulin resistance in perimenopause and menopause patients that they have been told by their doctor, well, you're not diabetic. And of course they're not diabetic, but they're having insulin resistance issues.
Right.
So then the nutrition and lifestyle and supplements need to be geared towards insulin resistance if they're not going to be on HRT, because oftentimes I find starting someone on estrogen will oftentimes help kind of that regulation again, because they're so intricately involved with each other. And estradiol affects a lot of different hormones in our body, not just insulin. I mean, it does interact with leptin and ghrelin as well. Are we full? Are we hungry? Our brains ability to say, yep, we ate something, we're good, we're full. I mean, it certainly disrupts these other metabolic hormones as well. So it's important that we, first of all, find it, right? Find where the pathway is, and then try to then help people with a more lifestyle choices that are going to work. And what I find is patients will often be in the category that they feel like, okay, I'm gaining weight, so I'm going to eat way less and I'm going to exercise way more. So then we talked about cortisol, right? Here you go in that same, we're now taking cortisol, which is a whole different hormone that can definitely disrupt your metabolism if you have high cortisol.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so part of the package of getting those lifestyle changes are doing breathing and meditation and yoga, moving your body and having a lot more self-awareness. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to do, is to even recognize that stress is playing a huge part. I call them my Energizer Bunny type A's. Like, what do you mean? I'm fine. I'm fine. Like, well, your brain's fine, and maybe you're accomplishing lots of things, but your body is being dragged along with you. And so recognize that your body's not fine, and connecting to those parts of you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think exactly. I think if you ask someone, are you stressed out? 9 times out of 10, they're like, nope, like I'm good. But that doesn't mean that the body's not sensing those stresses. The body's not responding to the constant threat that it feels. And you can certainly test that, but you can also just sort of know that that is a component of perimenopause and menopause that happens, and sort of incorporate that as part of your life. And I'm a big fan of like habits, right? Changing things that you already do and try to sort of tweak them for you, as opposed to sort of someone who does not meditate and the concept of meditating is stressful. Then we're not going to do meditation. We're going to talk about breath work. We're going to talk about journaling. We're going to talk about, or even I had one lady who's just everything was very difficult. And I said, you know what, why don't you just color in a coloring book?
Great idea.
Just color, because I've never met anybody who gets pissed off coloring. Like, it's really impossible. Like, you kind of have to chill out and you kind of feel good. It's very relaxing. So she actually started doing that, and it was very helpful for her, because at the end of the day, she needed to sort of let go of all those thoughts that were in her head. And it was very therapeutic just to color in an adult coloring book and kind of let it all come out.
Yeah, and that's why they're very popular, for that very reason. It's that people, I think there was a couple years where they were on all the bookshelves, right? Buying for Christmas, buy your friend a coloring book and chill out.
Because it's relaxing, and it's very you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. You just sort of have to, you almost kind of a little bit kick it old school, like from your kindergarten feelings of just kind of being nice
Mhm.
and happy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So what else can you talk about that we haven't discussed that you feel like is really important for us to think about when it comes to hormones and depression and metabolism, weight loss resistance, perimenopausal symptoms, menopausal symptoms?
I think what's most important is that if you're feeling some way, because we mentioned the common symptoms, but there are some uncommon symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. And, sometimes people will go into their physician and say, I'm having these rashes, or I'm having these, I'm not healing very well. I'm having difficulty at the gym. I feel like I'm getting injured more often. I'm having itchiness on my palms and my feet and my ears. So some of these sort of less common symptoms, if you're having these sort of symptoms that are feel like they may be related to your hormones, then making sure you're seeing someone who is expertise in perimenopause and menopause is important, because oftentimes people will go to their traditional primary care doctor and say, I'm having these symptoms, and they're like, that's not a hormone thing. That's not a GYN thing.
Right, right.
And they get dismissed. And I think that that's really important to understand, that if you're feeling this way and you know something is wrong, find somebody who can help you kind of dive into the why, what is going on in your body, why do you feel this way, and don't let yourself be dismissed by that. And I think that happens. I had a patient who saw their primary care for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
for perimenopause symptoms, and was sent to psychiatry. She was sent to endocrine. She was sent to cardiology for palpitations. She was sent to psychiatry because she didn't want to have sex with her husband anymore. She was sent to endocrinology because her hair was thinning. So it was all perimenopause. One
Right.
visit into my office, I'm like, do you want HRT? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A month later, she was like, you changed my life. You
Right.
changed my life. I was on the verge of losing my job. I have a wonderful husband, but he was getting very frustrated. And
Right.
it's like, here this poor lady had to go through these, just years of people, when it was like, she's 49. Like,
Yes, I
this is
know.
like ding, 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 ding. So I think if you feel like you're being dismissed, you need to find somebody who's an expert in perimenopause and menopause, who understands how to recognize those symptoms. And certainly if you have any of the things we mentioned today and over 35, it's possible that it could be a perimenopause or and menopause.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that there are lots of other options than conventional options like um, synthetic estrogen and synthetic progesterone. So there's lots of other options like the bioidentical hormones. There's supplements that are herbal, and
Mhm.
certainly all of that needs to be combined with lifestyle and nutrition changes and stress reduction. So it's looking at the whole picture, but absolutely, if you feel if you feel like you're not being heard or dismissed, it's really, really important to find someone who knows their stuff, like you, somebody like you.
Yeah, I mean, acupuncture has lots of good evidence for decreasing hot flashes. I mean, there's so many modalities other than medication, for people who this is not a conversation they want to have. It's not in their personal beliefs to do HRT. There's tons of options that can be offered to someone. So it's important, like I said, there's lots of different tools.
Right.
Depends on what the patient and the provider decide is the right tool for them.
Yeah. And there are other stressors on the body other than emotional or environmental stressors. Well, there are environmental stressors like toxins and mold and heavy metals and environmental
Yes.
toxins that can impact. And looking at dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in the microbiome. These are
Mhm.
all things that can that can cause alterations in your cortisol as well as your sex hormones. So it's also doing a dive in those areas, and it's again, it starts with looking at the whole person. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
that's very much a whole body approach. I mean, when you look at, just for depression, for example, we know that there can be a vicious cycle where someone's sex hormones are off, then their cortisol is off, then their gut's off. Like, it just kind of continues to sort of feed into each other.
Right.
And ultimately the symptom that's recognized as depression, but it doesn't mean that it's like that there's not ways to go about hitting those different targets to say, yes, we need to work on our gut, we need to work on our sex hormones, we need to work on our cortisol, like all of those different things can be different tools to help you with the root cause of depression.
Mhm. Great, great. That's so awesome. I'm so glad you're there to help people with this, because there's just not enough people like you and me to help the world. So why don't you tell us where you're located so people know how to find you?
Sure, I'm located in Southern California in Fullerton, and my company is called Precision Health MD. And that our website is precisionhealthmdoc for orangecounty.com. And then I'm on Instagram at drjen.md.
Great, great. And I know you have something to offer called the Metabolic Health Guide, which we will put in our show notes as well as our emails. And that way people can start even learning some things about you, and especially on Instagram too. So I really, really appreciate your time. You've given us a great deal of information for people to think about, and people need to know you're not crazy. It's your hormones. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
So
go ahead.
no, I think that's the key message here is that really, what you feel is true and it is what you're going through, and to try to figure that out and have somebody help you figure that out, that's really important, because I see patients who suffer for a long time
Mhm.
and maybe even dismissed by their family or their spouse, and they feel so alone, and it's really important that they know that this very well could be something that's out of your control, that it's not a willpower thing. It's
Right.
something that you are experiencing from things that are happening with your hormones.
Right. And you're not getting old, you're not getting demented, you're not going to
No.
be, yeah, people start catastrophizing when they get to a certain age, and, they start thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the way my life's going to be. No, it's not. It's not. There's hope for you. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I look forward to talking to you some more in the future.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.
Take care.